friendly hello, welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an absolutely amazing podcast for you as we're going to be joined here in this podcast by Ryan McIntyre. He does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's actually joining me as he's on the road back to the great state of West Virginia from Omaha. He was there because West Virginia, they were a part of the College Baseball World Series, had a really nice run, and he does a great job taking a look at the West Virginia Mountaineers. So we do have to talk a little bit of Big 12 with him, the teams that underwent coaching changes here in the offseason, and just the fact that in general, it does feel like the teams that were a little bit towards the bottom part of the totem pole out there in the Big 12, they are looking much, much better. Now, he informed me a few minutes before we did the interview that he was in the great state of Indiana, so we have to take a little bit of a look at Indiana, what their offseason has yielded as well, and just the fact that I'm going to say this quite a bit on the podcast here in the offseason, that it does feel like the Big Ten is a little bit more top-heavy than it has been in past seasons, especially with Purdue taking a little bit of a setback. I really feel like the Michigan schools along with Illinois are really your creme de la creme teams, and then everyone is looking up from them, and some of those middle-of-the-road teams seem to have taken a little bit of a setback from what we've seen in past seasons, so we'll chat about that, and just some of these mid-major teams that will have a nice offseason as well, so a nice, full, wide-ranging chat with our good friend Ryan today. And if you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever for this podcast, you do have one or two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, there's the maybe does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Not a lot of conference previews going down this week. Next week, we'll try to get you guys the Big South. I'm setting that up most likely for like Wednesday or Thursday, and you're going to be getting pretty soon the Big West as well. We're going to try to get you guys a specialized conference preview for all 32 conferences. We've already got 3 in the book, so that's very much on the docket for myself, and what is on the docket is getting you guys a podcast every single day. You can bank on that. We're over 2,300 straight days without a missed podcast, and much of it is due to great guests like our good friend Ryan McIntyre, who does amazing work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He and Kobe Dant with the show, The College Experience, are just so good at what they do in general. It's always a pleasure to get either of those men aboard. Today it's Ryan. He also does a great job looking at West Virginia athletics. Mentioned that he was in Omaha for the West Virginia Mountaineers over at the Ryan and Rush show as well. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at Moneyline_Mac, spelled M-A-C on Mac. And Ryan, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Greg, always appreciate it, brother. Hope all is well.
Oh, all is very well. And Ryan, I mentioned it a little bit before you came on, the fact that you're coming off of Omaha, where the West Virginia Mountaineers, they had a great run. Unfortunately, fell a little bit short, but I know that you're very proud of your guys, and I mean, a big congratulations to them making it as far as they did. It certainly is an accomplishment, and you're actually coming to us from the great state of Indiana, so I figured, you know what, let's make it a little bit themed, and let's start off with the state that you're in Indiana, because we've talked a lot about the offseason, some of these teams that have made some moves, and ironically enough, the state that you're in, the Indiana Hoosiers, they've made a lot of moves, and I want to get your thoughts as to what your expectations are for this upcoming season, especially since you do have quite a bit of familiarity with Coach DeVries, as just a few short years ago, he was over there at West Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. Omaha was fun, first off. Yeah. Everybody put that on your bucket list.
The Jello shots, baby.
Yeah, the Jello shots at Rocco's, and even if your team's not in it, it's a fun time. I think it's a lot like the Final Four weekend, where it's kind of just a party and a celebration of the sport. It's just a fun time overall. So I am driving. I'm midway through this drive back from Omaha, 15 hours back to West Virginia. So I'm in Indiana. As for the Hoosiers, this kind of feels like an all-in season with the resources that they invested in this program. Last year coming up short, even though they spent as much as anybody on that roster. I like the pieces. I like the veteran guards that they brought in. This should be an NCAA tournament team under Darren DeVries.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I do think that, especially with it being an expanded tournament field, because they weren't necessarily the world's furthest away last season as well, that they should be able to break through there. And I've talked about this on the podcast a little bit, and I do want to get your thoughts, because I think that it's fair to say that Indiana's right now more towards the middle of the Big Ten. Maybe the upper middle might be a good way of putting it, but have you felt the way that I have, that over the last few years, the Big Ten has had a little bit more of a divide between those top teams and everyone else, whereas a few years ago, it felt like you had like one or two top teams and then just a massive, massive middle.
I think there is a separation now. It's going to be hard for the Penn States of the world, the Northwesterns of the world that just don't spend like these other programs up top. So, and with the travel added to it, being a coast-to-coast league now with the 4 Pac-12 schools in Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. Then on the East Coast, you got Rutgers, Maryland, and then Penn State. It just adds a different dynamic that makes this league interesting. I think the Midwest teams have more of an advantage because they don't have to go coast to coast like those other teams.
Yep, I do agree with you there, as we do have our good friend Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And main reason why I did get you on, my friend, not just because I wanted to make sure that you were entertained during this very, very nice road trip through our nation's heartland, as I like to call it. I am a big Midwest guy, so love that you're out there in Indiana right now, but I did want to talk a little bit about the Big 12 because you are very much a Big 12 guy. You're just out there supporting the West Virginia Mountaineers over at Oman. How do you take a look at this conference for the upcoming season? Because I think that if I were to grade most improved conferences, I can't quite put the Big 12 in front of the Big East, mainly because the Big East had so much further to go than the Big 12, but I really like a lot of moves that the Big 12 has made, and maybe some of those, for lack of a better term, lower/middling teams, I feel like so many of them, aside from maybe a team like a Colorado, did a ton to get better here in the offseason.
The Big 12, I think, is definitely cemented itself as the most consistent basketball league in America over the last 10 plus years now. I just think that the coaching is so good. Well, you got Kelvin Sampson, you got Bill Self, you got Scott Drew, you got TJ Otzelberger, and go down the list. Now you can start Tommy Lloyd. You got so many guys that have now been to Final Fours. I know the Big Ten had a special season last year, the SEC the year before that. But the Big 12 has just been kind of the rock, I feel like, among all the leagues throughout, just consistency. So I think a lot of those programs now, like the Texas Techs, like the Kansas States, West Virginias, that maybe aren't in that blue blood status, or the top tier teams, like the 5 that I already mentioned, but they're spending now to try and narrow the gap and consistently now be an NCAA tournament team.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And with West Virginia, I think that this is big as well, and I want to get your thoughts here. Something that gets lost on a lot of people are the non-NCAA tournament runs. In this day and age, it's now the Crown and the NIT. Unfortunately, the CBI, the other tournaments, the CIT, they had the Vegas 16 one year, which they only had 8 teams in. I wish we still had that, but I don't think that that'll be coming back anytime soon. I do, though, think that these teams in these extra ancillary tournaments that make a run, I think that it sets them up for success. As we know, one of those teams was West Virginia. I know that Oklahoma's going to be looking a little bit different, but I believe they won a game out there in the Crown as well. And I do think that that's going to serve these teams really good moving forward. Even a team like an Oklahoma State that played in the NIT last season.
You look at Nebraska and UCF from the year before. Nebraska wins the Crown. They start 20-0. UCF, they started like 17-3, top 25 in the country. Ultimately ended up in the NCAA tournament and gave UCLA a heck of a game. So I'm with you. I think postseason experience is invaluable. Even though you're not playing in the NCAA tournament, you're getting experience playing 2, 3, 4, and sometimes even 4 weeks longer than teams that just have their seasons. And it really is a marathon when you consider we start in November and then we don't cut down the nets all the way in the Final Four, which will be in Detroit this year, till the first Monday in April. So I think it's good experience for both the staff, players, the managers, the support staff. Go through a run like that until you have that experience the next year when you hopefully get to the NCAA tournament.
Yep, I'm right there with you, and I do think that it's very big as well for the Big 12, the coaching moves that they made as well, because now there's a lot more experience of being able to make NCAA tournament runs and being able to get there with some of these staffs. I look at what Kansas State did, bringing in Casey Alexander, obviously Cincinnati bringing in Jared Calhoun, and then Arizona State with Randy Bennett coming in there. I feel like the Big 12 really got it right with all those coaching moves, and I'm not sure how you take a look at these three schools, because I do think that for Kansas State, it's going to be a little bit of a rebuild year. I think that's going to take Casey Alexander perhaps a year or two to be able to get things online, though steps are being taken in the right direction. But the one team out of these three that I think is going to make an impact right away is Arizona State, just with a few guys coming on over from St. Mary's to play for Randy Bennett, and then Rick Croy, a guy that led his Cal Baptist Lancers to the NCAA tournament, being added to that staff, I think has went very far under the radar and is another big ad for Arizona State here in the offseason.
Absolutely, Greg. Love Arizona State next year. Finally, I feel like we're going to get a well-coached Sun Devils team, because talent has not been the issue out in Tempe out west. It's been the inconsistency, the lack of discipline that it was under Bobby Hurley. Now you get the polar opposite. You get Randy Bennett coming over, runs a clean program, proud program at St. Mary's. He brings over Rick Croy, who's already with him at St. Mary's. He goes on to Cal Baptist, leads his team to the tournament. Now he's back in that associate head coach's role. I think that he's going to be a really good addition to Bennett's staff as he makes a jump here to the Big 12. And then obviously I'm good friends with Jared Calhoun from his time at West Virginia. They're going to be really chippy late in the year. I think it may take a little bit of a minute. I don't think Calhoun is going to sacrifice his culture for a couple extra wins in year number one. Honestly, very similar to Ross Hodge last year with the Mountaineers.
Yeah, but I think that those are teams that you always want to take a look at as well, because there are some teams that maybe they take their lumps, and I'm right there with you with Jared Calhoun over at Cincinnati. I don't know if they make the NCAA tournament in year number one, but I truly do think that he's doing it the right way, because we remember what Jerome Tang did over at Kansas State, had that incredible year number one, but he sort of sold out for that year number one, and less than 36 months later, he was out of a job. With Jared Calhoun, it seems like he's taking the opposite approach, saying, hey, maybe we will take a few lumps early on, but we want to be playing our best basketball late into the 2026-27 season, and to be able to build for year number two, year number three, and make this sustainable rather than just a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it also has to do with Cincinnati's got to be top five, probably actually top three on Jared Calhoun's dream jobs. He was a part of that program. He was a GA there. He was there for the Bob Huggins era back in the day. So he's very familiar with the state of Ohio. Like I said, the Cincinnati job's been one of his 2 or 3 most coveted jobs that he's wanted throughout his career just because of his time there. So he's not going to sacrifice his culture in year number one to just win a couple extra games. And they'll get better throughout the year. They're going to build that thing to be really good long-term, just like they were during the Huggs era and the McCronin era.
Yep, I echo those sentiments there, and I do think that he's doing things very much the right way. As joining me on the show, we do have our good friend Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and it's definitely always fun talking about the big boys with Ryan. He does a great job following the Big 12 with his affinity for West Virginia. But how about on the flip side, we do take a look at some of these mid-major programs, a few that are sending out to him, and some of the mid-major conferences that in general have been really be able to elevate themselves here over the last few seasons. That's up next, right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Big XII, now part of the Big XII Family Podcast. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here, lovely lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peters, and now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He and Kobe Dan, absolutely incredible with the show, The College Experience. Ryan also does a great job following all things West Virginia athletics with the Ryan and Rush Show. Follow him on the old Twitter/X at Moneyline_Mac, spelled MAC, and Ryan. In the last segment, we talked about the Big 12, and one thing that a lot of the hires of the Big 12 have this offseason in terms of the new coaches is that many of them were over at mid-major programs, and we gave the Big 12 a lot of shine in the last segment. Now let's talk a little bit more about those mid-major teams. As we know, a lot of these mid-major programs in this day and age, they do get a little bit poached in the transfer portal. It just is what it is here in this day and age. But are there a few mid-major programs that are really catching your eye and you feel like they've been able to have a nice offseason, / maybe they've been able to maintain some of their own and they've been able to avoid sort of the trend that we're seeing and they've got a lot coming back there you're feeling bullish on?
I would look at High Point and Liberty, and I think a lot of it has to do with, well, you get Clayman in year number 2 now. A great first year, obviously, going to the tournament, beating Wisconsin, and heck, even taking Arkansas down to the wire to a certain degree, or at least pushing them for 40 minutes and not laying down. And then Liberty with Richie McKay, they have an identity. Those two schools have a lot of money and a very rich alumni. So I think that they've been able to invest resources and keep talent and reload with talent year after year.
Yep, I'm right there with you, and I'm going to be doing my Big South preview here in the next few days as well, so I'm very much getting prepared for that, and I do want to get your thoughts on what we're seeing in this mid-major landscape, because I do feel like we've been seeing a little bit of a changing of the guard in terms of some of these top mid-majors, because it always used to be a team like a Vermont, who I'm still high on Vermont. I still think that they're going to be solid out there in the America East, but it does feel like a school like that over the last few years has taken a little bit of a setback out there in the Metro Atlantic. All those teams have really taken a step back, but I'm noticing personally, and maybe I'm off base here, a lot of these southern schools with money, because you mentioned High Point, McNeese has certainly been one of them. Like, how often do you go from Will Wade to a new coach and yet you're still a very rock solid program like they are? A lot of these Southland programs, they've really been the programs that have been able to rise up the ranks of the mid-major ranks. Meanwhile, you've seen some of these other, shall we say, perennial mid-major teams, like even a team like a Colgate out there in the Patriot League, they seem to be a team that has taken a step back over the last 24 to 36 months.
I agree, and I think a lot of it has to do with NIL. McNeese has a lot of money. They have a lot of money down there. Will Wade, a bowl of energy, and really got that program going. And now Armstrong is looking to continue it. They got back to the NCAA tournament last year in his first year. They've really got that thing humming down there. Compared to Colgate in the Patriot League, it's some of the more of these bottom-tier mid-major leagues that don't have the resources. I think that gap is going to continue to grow, because gone are the days where you're going to have a core group that'll stay together for 4 years.
Yep, no question about it. It is one of these things where it's unfortunate that a lot of your 15-plus point per game scorers at a mid-major program, they do leave. But at the same time, I think that we've also seen the inverse of that. And the teams I think are really doing a good job are looking at these guys that are glued to the bench, only averaging 1 or 2 points at insert your favorite power or school here, and trying to be able to identify a good fit. I think that Santa Clara has been one of those teams under Herb Sendek. He has been able to do an amazing job of that. And I think that that's just so key, having these programs that they just seem to be able to find these guys that, even though there might not be a lot of tape on that former top 150, top 200 guy that was glued to the bench the last year or two, being able to identify a fit and being able to have them be able to reach their full potential at these mid-major schools.
And the depth is just not what it was. And a lot of guys have a really good year, and then you jump to a mid-major plus, and then you're looking to have another monster year so that you can get to the high major and get that $1 to $2 million, or heck, even $3 million, get that cash back. So it's different. I'm not the biggest fan of it, because I do like the tradition of these mid-majors. But unfortunately, with the way our system's set up now, it's going to be really hard for them to sustain success at a very high level unless you're at one of those mid-majors that really spends like a high major.
Yep, and we are starting to see some of them. And hey, I know that they're not quite necessarily the smallest of the mid-majors, but we are seeing the Atlantic 10 doing a very rock-solid job. I'm feeling good about the American for this upcoming season, and I'm always feeling good when you're on this podcast, Ryan. You're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this great sport of college basketball. You and Kobe Dant do such a great job with the show, The College Experience, over there on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. You do the Ryan and Rush show dedicated to West Virginia athletics, and you are Mr. West Virginia. We saw you on so many of those broadcasts on ESPN for the College World Series. You're doing an amazing job of supporting the guys and so much more. So love the good people at home. Know it's all tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Always appreciate it, Greg. I'm a Mountaineer, gold and blue through and through. You're thick and thin. This was an easy year to root for him because that was a fun ride there to Omaha. Hopefully football and basketball can continue the momentum now. But yeah, you can check us out over at the College Experience. All 138 team previews we'll be knocking out before Labor Day. And then our coaches tour will begin now this week, now that we finally got this Omaha run completed. So now I'll be able to get some coaches on the calendar, get them on our show, and get us ready for college hoop season.
Absolutely. Ryan is doing such an amazing job all 12 months out of the year looking at this great sport. He has such great knowledge because he was on the coaching staffs of both Bob Huggins along with Frank Martin back in the day. So it's always great to be able to get his insights and always great to be able to get all the fun that he provides us as well. Big thanks to Ryan for joining me on because he's now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And if you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Go Seeps, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I do beg with you, I do plead with you, please do send in those Twitter/X questions because I'm with you guys every single day on this podcast. We're over 2,300 straight days without a missed podcast. We've already done 3 conference previews on this podcast already. We're going to get you a specialized conference preview podcast for all 32 conferences. I'm going to do everything I can to make this the best college basketball season ever. So you're getting very thorough insights here in the offseason. Then once we get back in season, as per usual, picks and analysis on every single game, every single day. So I appreciate you tuning in today, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.